forgot to hang up my phone while on vacation with my boss. He overheard us mocking him. But then, "Hello, Reddits. My name is Kimberly, and I'm 27 years old, and I work as a secretary in a trading company. I used to live with my husband of 4 years, but he has left home for several days now, and I can't get a hold of him anywhere, and I'm so disturbed. It was actually my fault. I made him leave because of my careless actions. I forgot to hang up my phone while on vacation with my boss, and he overheard us. But then, I didn't even know he did until I got home only to find him gone. And now everyone, especially Cole, my husband, hates me. It wasn't entirely my fault. I mean, I did love my husband, and I still do very much so, but I had to do what I did in order to survive." Cole was struggling with his business, even though he was too proud to admit it, and I had to do something to help him out, even though it included sleeping with my boss and lying to Cole every time. But eventually, even the reason I started the affair became selfish, and I just wanted the money and the expensive lifestyle for myself. I guess I missed what I had with my parents. All the servants, the glamour, the ridiculously expensive dresses I could get because I just wanted to, the men attracted to my wealth. All of it got lost the moment I decided I wanted to get together with Cole. My parents wanted nothing to do with me from that instant. Though a few months later, they came back and tried to offer some assistance to help us financially, but Cole was too proud to accept anything from them. He just wanted them to be just my parents, not anything else. He didn't want their connection or money, and would rather work ridiculously hard for those things on his own. It didn't help matters that his family, which included his parents and his brothers, encouraged him to work for his own money. It frustrated me a lot. You know that feeling of how I could have so much more if I just accepted one form of help from my parents, but I couldn't because of my strong-hearted husband. I met Cole at my birthday party, organized by my friends who obviously wanted the best for me. But by then, I was very bored with my life. I had everything I ever wanted. Even their gifts were just like another pair of expensive items I owned. I had become very bored with the choice of friends I had who all made rich people seem like they're all bimbos. All they thought about all day was partying, and while they were still at that party, they were planning for the next one. It irritated me, and at that time, I guess I just wanted to have a sense of belonging, and also be able to appreciate what I had. My parents were always too busy for me. It's either they were at a conference this minute or out of the country the next one. I was literally raised by every other person except my own parents. The relationship between us was rather cool rather than close. I did not have that daughter-mother closeness, but yet I knew they loved me very much. So when my friends had planned their surprise party, which I definitely knew about from the beginning, I didn't think much of it because it was just another one of the usual things they did. But it certainly was not because I met Cole that day, and it was memorable. Apparently, he had been invited by a mutual friend who decided he did not go out enough and needed to start having fun, and he had come to my party just to get his nagging friend off his back. When he had seen me, the supposed birthday girl, trying to sneak off and find a quieter place to stay, he had followed me. We talked for a long time, and it wasn't even anything in particular, just random stuff. We talked about our feelings on some issues, and he mentioned how uncomfortable he was among my friends, and I had laughed with him when he shared a few jokes. He had made my birthday really special, and I had wanted to see him again, so I collected his contact information from our mutual friend who had invited him to the party because I forgot to get it directly from him until he left. I texted him, and he somehow knew who it was. We started texting often, and soon we started meeting physically too. Most times in a restaurant of Cole's choosing so he could afford it because, according to him, men were supposed to sort out bills, or sometimes in a library or some bookstore. Cole obviously loved reading. I had been amazed at how vastly knowledgeable he was just by studying books when I had first met him. The funny thing was, he had never had to travel out of the country like I had, but he had an opinion on everything I said about those countries. It had been fascinating watching his eyes get that twinkle in them whenever he spoke about anything he was passionate about. I liked him so much that I was the one who encouraged a relationship between us. Despite his rather cute boldness when he talked about some things, Cole was rather shy when it came to things like that, so I had tried to push things further between us by hinting several times that I wanted a relationship with him. It took Cole a few months to actually muster up the courage to ask me to be his girlfriend, and I had been so happy. We started dating, and I was head over heels for Cole. I literally did nothing that did not involve him. Although there was always a but in our relationship, Cole never allowed me to spoil him with money. The only day and time I was allowed to do that was on his birthdays or special occasions when I got him gifts. I remember gifting him a car because I was tired of him having to come late to our dates because he had been stuck in traffic or the cab suddenly developed some fault. But Cole had made me return the car without even seeing reason with me. It frustrated and excited me at that point because I was used to dating guys who usually wanted me to spend on them. I liked his strong, independent feeling, and it made me more attracted to him. When I was in my final year of school, Cole had already graduated because he had been a year ahead of me, but he usually came around to say hi to me most times. When I was done with school, Cole proposed to me a year later, and I had, of course, said yes happily. But the problem came when I told my parents, and they had asked what he did and how influential his parents were, and then got a negative response to their questions. They had opposed it badly and had asked me to end everything with Cole, but I had obviously not listened to them, seeing I got married to Cole 2 weeks after I told them about it. At first, I hadn't told Cole about my parents' objection, and I had lied about them being out of the country on the day we got married in a court so that Cole could go ahead and marry me. My parents were very angry with me and wanted nothing to do with me, as I mentioned earlier, which made me rely on Cole for everything. Cole rented an apartment for both of us to live in, but I was clearly not satisfied with it because it was unusually small compared to my room in my parents' house, but I had no choice, so I just accepted it. Cole got a job at a manufacturing company, and that got him really busy and left me just bored, waiting for him to come back. Being born into a wealthy family had its perks and disadvantages. I couldn't cook or even clean the first year of our marriage, and Cole had to do everything for both of us until he started teaching me how to, though until now, I still cannot cook but a few dishes. Cole had never complained. He would always say he knew what he was getting himself into by marrying a rich girl. But at that point, I wasn't even rich anymore, as my parents wanted nothing to do with me. When they eventually came around, Cole only allowed me to visit them. He specifically warned me never to expect him to accept anything from my parents, especially financially, and at first I had thought he had been joking. Dad had offered him a very well-paid position in his company after I had convinced him, but Cole refused, saying he was satisfied with the work he did. Then I asked my dad to get him another job in another well-known company, thinking that it was at least not my dad's company again, but Cole had refused blatantly, and my dad had given up. In the 3rd year of our marriage, Cole decided to quit his job and start up his own company, and it was really hard because he didn't have enough financial capability to do so, so he was just trying to get a loan from the bank, but he was rejected several times. When I offered to go meet my dad on his behalf, he had flipped and told me that he would never accept anything from my parents. It started to frustrate me, and because he was trying to gather the money for his business, it affected our financial status very much. So I decided to go get a job so I could at least help out with the bills. I got a job in a trading company as the secretary through my dad's help, but it was definitely done behind my husband's back. He thought I had gone through the whole process of applying and interviewing, but I knew that I wouldn't have even gotten the job if it weren't for my parents. I started the job thinking it was going to be easy, but it had obviously not been. Several times I felt like quitting because the work had been so demanding, but I was pretty much determined to show Cole that I could easily work too, and not rely on my parents or him all the time. I remember before I had gotten the job, Cole and I had had an argument, all because he kept refusing to accept help from my parents, and he had accused me of wanting to be spoon-fed all the time because I hadn't done a day's work in my life. I had wanted to prove that I could assist financially around the house without my parents being involved, even though they technically were. But I did get the job done and got paid at the end, right? When I had gotten my first paycheck, I had been so proud of myself that I got myself a matching bag and shoes to celebrate, and that almost wiped out my entire salary, but Cole had said nothing about it and had been proud of me. Thinking back, I never really think I did contribute to anything around the house, even though I deluded myself into thinking I did. But one time, I had gotten a massage chair because I had back pains, but Cole also used it, so maybe I did contribute something, right? Eventually, I was not even satisfied with the money I got. I was used to getting more than that to blow off in a day, and now I had to work for a whole month to get that stipend.
No.
My parents kept asking me if I would start receiving money again from them behind my husband's back, but I knew that Cole would find out somehow through my spending, and I really hadn't wanted to upset him, knowing how strongly independent he wanted to be. So I rejected the very tempting offer and chose to stick to my very stressful and less paying job.
No.
Soon enough, my boss asked me to travel with him for a week for work, and I had told Cole about it. He wasn't exactly satisfied because it was only my boss and I traveling, but he knew he had no choice. My boss and I traveled out of the country, and the first 2 days were spent doing business. My boss had asked me to book 2 different rooms in the same hotel for us both. So it was easy for us to leave together for the business meetings. We would have lunch alone, though, but most times dinner and breakfast were with the clients. By the 3rd day, we were done with everything and had finalized the business deal, and I had actually been expecting us to leave earlier since we were done. But my boss had surprisingly asked me to still stay and enjoy the remaining days we had left. On that note, he took me touring the city, then we dined in grand style, and he bought me luxurious gifts, including clothes and jewelry. When I tried to reject them, he told me it was nothing and just a gift from a boss to his employee, so I accepted them. I was excited too because I hadn't gotten things like that in a long time. At that moment, I realized how much I missed being able to buy things without bothering about the money finishing up or the transport fare for the next day. It had been really nice. On the last day of our trip, my boss had come to my hotel room that evening and knocked. Thinking it was room service, I opened up and had been surprised to see my boss. My brain started acting up, thinking he might have needed something, but that was until he removed what he was hiding behind his back, and it turned out to be a bottle of champagne. He asked if he could come in. Of course, who would say no to their boss? I had allowed him in and gotten 2 glasses for the champagne because he had said he wanted to just celebrate the end of our trip. I knew that my boss was not that friendly, but the whole week, he had gone out of his way to make me comfortable, and I felt I could at least share a glass of champagne with him. He started to talk about his fiancée, whom his father was forcing him to marry, despite knowing that he wasn't in love with her because it was good for business. Apparently, the girl's family, too, owned a fast-growing business that would be a blast if they managed to merge with his, and so the girl's family didn't lose out. They wanted him, my boss, to marry the girl, and his own father had agreed to it. He kept drinking the champagne like water, and when I tried to stop him, he refused. I hadn't really wanted to force him since, regardless, he was still my boss. He had stood up and had almost fallen down, and I reached out quickly to steady him when he had leaned in and kissed me smack on the lips. When he realized that I was frozen, he had taken advantage of that and continued kissing me. At first, I had been too shocked to react, and when I did, I had pushed him away without making it look offensive. I had purposely led him to the door and bade him good night. In my hotel room that night, I couldn't sleep because I kept thinking back to the kiss. I knew I could never say anything to Cole because he would instantly suggest I quit, and that would be after he had marched to my office to use his fists on my boss. I thought back to all the luxurious clothes and jewelry he got me, and I realized that they actually weren't free because he had obviously wanted something with me. I loved Cole, and at that time, I could not even dream of cheating on him, despite the fact that I knew that it was going to be hard working in the same place as my boss after the stunt he pulled. When we had gotten back from the trip and he had called me into his office, he had apologized for the stunt he pulled the day before and had promised me it wouldn't happen again, and I relaxed, happy that he thought so. I thought it was finally over until, well, it wasn't. My boss had obviously said that, so that I wouldn't want to quit working or avoid him as much as I could because he didn't stop trying to get in my pants. He would buy me several gifts, invite me on lunch dates, and try to seduce me a lot of times. He even increased my salary beyond the work I did, and it made me really uncomfortable. All this while I did not tell Cole. Why, you might ask? I kind of weirdly enjoyed the attention, however uncomfortable it was. I knew within myself that I did not have any kind of feelings for my boss, but I just liked that he wanted to spend on me. And he got me all the designers I was used to, the latest ones, and that was a plus. Cole wasn't rich enough to spend on me, so we barely had dates, and when we did, it was at some shabby restaurants, whose names were certainly not on the map. When he bought me gifts, it was either flowers or maybe cheap jewelry, and that was only on special occasions like our anniversary or a new investment gone well. I liked that my boss spent without limitations or thinking about the next day. It strangely excited me. It was until my boss started demanding sex that I knew I had gone too far with it. At first, he had just demanded I spend time with him, especially outside the office, and I agreed. Cole thought I was only working until late, as I had told him, and had no idea what it was I was actually doing. Then later, it was kissing and some heavy petting, which I allowed because of the things I got in return. And by the way, Cole thought all the luxurious gifts I got from my boss were actually from my parents. We had even fought about it one time when he told me I was getting used to getting things from them again, and I had told him that they were my parents, and that I couldn't exactly reject their gifts, as that would be considered disrespectful. Cole had reluctantly agreed, but only asked me not to get addicted to it, as he was not up to that stage where he could provide that much for me. So I eventually limited collecting gifts from my boss, and he turned them instead into cash. He would just suddenly dump a huge amount in my bank account, and I was really giddy with excitement. Cole's business started to dwindle again, and I had all the money to help him, and even more, but I knew that Cole would never accept my help and would question where I got it from, so I kept quiet and watched him struggle to get back on his feet.
No.
My boss bought me an apartment with everything already placed in it. The furniture, art frames that I loved, the kitchen filled with different cutlery, pots and other stuff. And the bedroom was designed quite well to my taste. It pleased me very much, and that apartment became our meeting spot. I even quit my job and stayed in the apartment all the time, but of course Cole did not know that, because I made sure to be extra careful. I left home at the usual time I did when I had to go to work, and then I came back when I was supposed to, so Cole did not suspect anything. Instead of going to work, though, I would go to the apartment, and then later my boss would join me, and we would have sex and some petty talks. My boss eventually developed a new habit, and it was mocking my husband Cole. After we'd had sex and lay in bed in each other's arms, he would start mocking Cole about how not so smart he was to notice his wife actually cheating on him right under his nose. He would go on to brag that he would never allow that to happen with him, and then mock Cole again, saying he clearly was not good enough in bed, which was why I kept coming back for more of him. I would laugh and play along just to please him and inflate his already overinflated ego because he knew nothing about why I was doing what I did. Cole was 10 times better at satisfying me in bed than my boss, and I was only sleeping with him because of the money I got to have for myself. He got off quickly, leaving me very unsatisfied. In fact, most times I faked an orgasm just so he would think himself good in bed. I enjoyed just 2 things with him, the money and gifts, and it felt worth it, having to pay all those sacrifices. Cole started complaining one time that I hadn't been given any off days for a while, and I knew I had to slow down so that I didn't get caught. So I lied to my boss that my mom was gravely ill, and I had to go over to take care of her, and he had reluctantly allowed me. Some of you may wonder why I still call him my boss, even though we were sleeping together. Well, the truth is, I never considered myself his mistress, more like someone being paid to have sex with him and nothing else. I somehow wanted to erase that mistress part of the deal, really. I somehow wanted to reject the idea of being a kept woman. Crazy as that may sound, I just saw myself as someone being paid to have sex and not as a mistress. It felt like acknowledging I was a mistress meant acknowledging my sins against Cole and the sacred vows of marriage, and I didn't want to have to accept that. And my boss usually did exactly that. I mean, pay me after having sex. He would send me money after leaving my bed. So I stayed 2 days at home during the weekdays without going to the apartment at all, and Cole was very happy to have me. He even took me on a business trip that day, though we came back that very same day, but it had been fun, and I totally enjoyed myself. Cole went out of his usual ways to actually make me comfortable, and it was like we were dating again. I enjoyed every moment. It made me fall more deeply for him. How that is possible, I wouldn't know, but it sure happened. That experience that day had me rethinking the whole thing with my boss, especially because I did not even like him as a person. He was exceptionally rude and grumpy, and he loved to brag, especially about things that were clearly in doubt. Cole wasn't like that. He loved me wholeheartedly, I knew that, and he usually tried his best to get me stuff, even if they were way cheaper compared to the things I was used to before and the ones my boss got me, but he still tried. He was independent and would do anything legal to protect his dignity, and I realized those attributes were actually what made me fall in love with him. But when I thought about quitting my job, the dreadful thoughts of how I was going to survive going back to stipends held me back and stopped me from actually doing so. The next day, Cole and I spent the entire day in the house just talking randomly, eating, and having sex. Knowing I'd go back to my boss's bed the next day displeased me, and I hadn't wanted that day to end at all. Soon enough, I was back to my usual routines of lies and having more money. On our 4th anniversary, Cole started talking about having kids, and I spoke against it. Not because I didn't want to. I honestly had wished to become pregnant with Cole's baby, but I knew if I stopped protecting myself by stopping the use of contraceptives, I might get pregnant, and there would be doubts. Since I was sleeping with 2 men consecutively, I could get pregnant, and it would turn out to be my boss's baby, and I did not want that happening in a million years. It would destroy my marriage and also my life, because obviously my boss was never going to get married to me, seeing he already had a fiancé, and I was also married. The thought of having to live in shame and undercover for years because of the scandal my affair with my boss coming out would cause made me shudder, and I couldn't bear to think about it. So I lied to Cole that I wasn't ready to have kids because I had just gotten a stable work-life balance, and I really didn't think I wanted to ruin my figure just yet. Cole had been unhappy with my decision, but because I was the one who would carry the baby, he had to accept my decision. I felt bad, but then I really did not want anything that would hurt Cole, but I felt like I had no choice. I wanted to continue having money and spending as I liked, and I also wanted to be with Cole. However selfish that sounded, that was what I wanted at the moment. But I guess the saying that you cannot eat your cake and have it is really true because that was exactly what happened a few weeks after. My boss had to go on a work trip, and he had asked me to come along with him. At first, I hadn't wanted to go because I had felt uneasy about the whole thing, but my boss had insisted I come along with him, so I had agreed. I lied to Cole that I was going on a work trip, but this time it was a 3-day-long trip, and he had accepted. When we had gotten to the hotel room, my boss had excused himself to go for the meeting, and I had called Cole to tell him I had arrived. We spoke for a while until I noticed my boss was back, so I quickly dismissed Cole. Apparently, the meeting had been postponed because the business partner he was meeting actually had to take an emergency trip. My boss then decided to stay for the whole 3 days instead of going back immediately. We stayed in most of the days, and on the last day, Cole had called me, and I had excused myself to go to the bathroom to pick up the call. I knew I had to dismiss Cole quickly because of the way my boss had reacted when he saw my phone ringing and who it was. So I lied to Cole that I was in a meeting and that I only excused myself to pick up the call, so Cole had quickly said his goodbyes. So stupidly, I thought I had ended the call, and I went back into the room, and my boss started mocking my husband per usual again, and I just went along with it as I usually did, just to please him. Eventually the next day, we had to leave, and I went directly home. But on getting home, I met Cole in the living room, staring at the wall. I was surprised to see him there because he was usually at his company at that time of day, and when I asked him what was up, he did not respond, just stared at me with pain in his eyes, and then stood up and walked out. I was just so shocked because of the pain I had seen in his eyes. It twisted my heart into several pieces, and I started getting really scared. My head started thinking of different scenarios, and I can tell you that I've never been as scared as I was that day. I decided to find out what was wrong, and I went after him, only to find him packing up his bag. I asked if he was going on a trip, but he did not respond. I tried several times to get a response from him, just until he picked up his phone and played a recording for me. The first part had been of me lying that I had excused myself from a meeting to take his call, and then the rest was followed by my boss mocking Cole and me laughing along. I had been so shocked and didn't know what to say or how to react. My heart had been pounding so hard, it felt like I was going to die from the pain. When he picked up his bag, the only words he said to me were that he never wanted to see or hear from me again. I tried begging him, crying and pleading, but Cole wasn't even hearing me. He just left. I've been in the house for several days now, and Cole has not even come home at all. He has blocked me on every social media platform, and he never replies to my texts.
No.
In fact, I tried reaching out to his family, but none of them were willing to divulge any information about his whereabouts. I'm guessing he must have told them about me already. I really cannot afford to lose Cole. Please, guys, help me. What do I do? How do I get Cole back, please? Update. Hello, Reddits. It's me again. Yes, the greedy cheat, as you all call me here.
No.
You know, while I came here to get advice from you people, I thought that maybe I did do some things right, but the comments you guys leave on my post, the backlashing and name-calling, just literally made me realize how idiotic I've been with everything. I lost Cole. I lost the best man out there for me. These past few weeks, I've been able to self-reflect, and I've realized just how stupid I've been. Because of my selfishness, I've lost Cole. Somehow, in my head, I thought that doing the things I did to Cole would not have any repercussions, but sadly, I was wrong. Very wrong, in fact. The most painful thing to me right now is not even the backlashing I'm receiving, but remembering the pain in Cole's eyes when he looked at me that day. Every time I remember, I feel like I'm betraying Cole over and over again. I miss Cole so much. I wish I had not hurt him as much as I did. Every day is filled with regrets for me. I wake up thinking about what I could have done better rather than choosing to hurt the man I love, and I go to sleep crying and wishing I hadn't been so stupid. I literally have no one to talk to anymore because Cole was the only person that actually listened to me and understood. But I lost both our friendship and marriage. My parents would never understand me, and they weren't exactly the go-to parents anyway. The person I cheated on Cole with is now married to his fiancée, who he found out was a serial cheat like he was. Well, I wish him all the unhappiness in the world. But then again, it was actually my choice to reject having an affair, but I had thought Never mind. I have absolutely no excuse for cheating on Cole, and it's painful how late I realized it. Crazy how happy you are one minute and how everything seems to be working perfectly, and then everything crumbles within seconds. I wish so desperately that I had done things differently, that I had been a good and supportive wife, and that I had not even cheated on him at all. Things would have been so different, but I had allowed my greed to override me and had decided I just wanted more. Funny how I can't even use all the money I gathered from my affair. Now it all seems so worthless. I wish life really did do do-overs, but it doesn't, does it? I know that Cole could never forgive me because I can't forgive myself. I feel so empty and heartbroken and very, very stupid. It hurts. It really hurts so badly. Sometimes I just stay awake through the night, and with a tiny hope that he would maybe just read the text, I would text Cole, but he has never responded to any of my messages since that day. I shouldn't have done what I did. I know, and I regret everything I did and have ever done. I never tried making myself better for him. I just focused on trying to live a comfortable life, and now even that comfort I craved, I don't even have at all. I feel uncomfortable just living with myself because of how disgusted I am with myself for the things I did to Cole. I don't think words can fully express how I feel right now, because I find myself repeating the same things over and over again, but I guess that describes half of the things I feel. My greed for money has brought me doom, and the consequences now stare me right in the face. I feel so ashamed. These days, living feels like a luxury I can't even afford. Or is it I don't want to afford it? Why would I really? Life isn't worth living as long as Cole isn't in it. A whole day feels too long, let alone a whole week or month. It's dreadful, my feelings, that is. Somehow, I still delude myself, even if I know it would never happen, that maybe someday Cole would come back for me, and that we would once again become a happy couple as we once were. I thought I had been lonely when I was still the spoiled rich princess, but there's really nothing to compare to this feeling I have now. It's a horrible feeling that I wouldn't wish on anyone. The thought of Cole meeting someone new always almost stops my heart every time it comes to mind. I love Cole. I wish I had not done anything to hurt him at all. Everything now feels just so difficult. It feels so difficult because everything about this house reminds me of Cole and reminds me of what I could have still had I not lost it. His scent is still all over the house, his clothes, almost like he never left, and that alone is torment on its own.
No.
But I cannot live because I want to punish myself by reminding myself of what could have been. Update. Hello, Reddits. This is my very last post here, and I just wanted to say thank you. Even if none of you wished me well, at least you still read my story, or perhaps might have even picked a lesson or two. It's been 3 dreadful months without Cole, and believe me, every day is still as awful as the first day he left. And I know I will forever regret what I did to Cole. Thanks and goodbye.